I'd like to call the May Historic Preservation Commission meeting to order. Paula, would you call the roll?
Alan Brown.
Present.
Jennifer Bourne.
Present.
Heather Clemmer.
Present.
Ela Crank Clements.
Present.
Greg Eddington.
Present.
George Massey.
Present.
Mary Jo Meacham.
Present.
Jeffrey Parks.
Present.
And Ann Zacharitz. You have a quorum.
Okay, thank you. I'd like to go over the procedures that are on the back of the agenda, please. First, the chairman will announce each case and ask any party having interest in the case to indicate their presence by raising their hand. Commissioners will then discuss the details of the case, calling on staff to provide details of their proposals. Following this discussion, commissioners may choose to ask questions of the applicant, the staff, and any other interested party. Interested persons may speak to support or protest the application. The applicant will be entitled to one brief rebuttal. Interaction between applicant and protestants on the floor is not permitted. Persons speaking are asked to approach the center podium one at a time to introduce themselves by name and address, if you would sign in, please, and to present their position as succinctly as possible. The Commission asks each speaker to limit his or her remarks to no more than 5 minutes. Following the public hearing on an application, the Commission will take one of the following actions. 1, approve the certificate of appropriateness. 2, continue the proposal. 3, deny the proposal with prejudice, which means the application may not be resubmitted for at least 1 year unless the Commission determines that the circumstances have changed. 4, deny the proposal without prejudice, which means the applicant may reapply at any time. Then, when an application has been approved and after a 10-day protest period has expired, the Historic Preservation Officer will mail the CA to the applicant. And city construction permits cannot be issued until the CA has been issued. And finally, any person aggrieved by any decision granting or denying a CA may appeal to the Oklahoma City Board of Adjustment. All appeals shall be made within 10 days of the Commission decision by filing a written notice with the clerk of the BOA. Okay, also if you would silence your cell phone, including the Commission members, be great. So we'll go on to item 2 from the Office of the Historic Preservation Officer. Katie?
So just a reminder again, the statewide Historic Preservation Conference is in Bartlesville from June 3rd to the 5th. This year, we've got staff and a few commission members signed up to attend, so if anybody else is interested from the commission, we do have some funds available for that, and it's obviously open to the public as well if you're interested in attending. We have our wood window repair workshop coming up May 15th through 17th. It is pretty much all full for participants. There are still openings for people to come and observe, and would encourage anyone to contact me that has an interest in coming and observing. Commission members, especially if you even just have a few hours available to come by and watch a little bit of the work. I think it'll be a really rewarding and educational couple of days. The next HP Commission meeting is going to be May 29th, rescheduled from the June date on our normal calendar. That's to allow us to attend the statewide preservation conference. So applications for that meeting have already been received, and that'll be on a Friday, so just everybody make sure that's marked on your calendar. So in relation to that, if we continue anything today, it should probably be to the July 1 meeting, because we've got such a short turnaround for that May 29th.
Okay, thank you, Katie. Item 3, acceptance of minutes of previous meeting from April 1st, 2015.
I just have one item on it. Item number 2 for the HPCA 14-00225, that there is a motion by myself in Parks for a denial without prejudice. It needs to be for item number 2. It wasn't clarified. That was item number 2.
Okay. Is that a motion with that change?
Motion with that change.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
It's been moved by Jennifer Bourne, seconded by Heather. Oh, neither. Frank Clements, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? All right, the minutes are accepted. Code enforcement report, item 4. Is there somebody here to give us a report? Any questions on the code report? I guess we'll...
Yeah, if anyone has questions, you can contact staff and we'll follow up on any specific cases.
Okay, thank you. Now on to item 5, continuance announcements and requests. Looks like none.
Yep, no requests for continuance and no dilapidated structures or National Register nominations this month.
Just go on down to item 6C then, consent docket. Any comments on the consent docket? Like to remove something? Is there a motion for approval of the consent docket?
I move to approve the consent docket.
Second.
After all the paper shuffling.
It's been moved by Jeff Parks and seconded by George Massey. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, consent docket is approved. Moving right along. On to D, cases for individual consideration.
For anyone in the audience, if your case was listed there on the consent docket, see items 1 through 5, you are approved and you can go. So no need to sit through the rest of the meeting.
Thanks for coming.
We've got a lot of people here. Feel free to give Angela or I a call if you have questions.
Thank you. All right, now on to...
Okay. HPCA 15-00020 at 600 Northwest 14th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Andy Burnett, WCO, Heritage Hills LLC by Catherine Montgomery of Preservation and Design Studio for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace fence with fence and gate elective, 2, remove carport and garage door elective, 3, construct new garage elective, 4, widen driveway elective, 6, reconstruct porch guard wall elective, 8, reconstruct parapet and install guardrail for east solarium elective, and 9, install guardrail for back roof elective.
Okay, is the applicant present? There he is. While he's coming up, any questions or comments? Okay.
Catherine is supposed to be here. I'm not sure where she is, so I'll try my best to handle it without her.
Andy could go ahead and sign in.
Yes.
I will just note too, just as this is reviewed, and especially if Catherine's not here, that this does have one more continuance left to it. So if we're not at a place to approve something today, it can be continued one more time. Just
Can
So-
be.
Since we last met, I think you, Mr. Brown, suggested that I look at moving the garage to the back of the back corner. We have done a massive amount of research over the last 2 months since we met before. My wife kind of hit a place about 3 weeks ago that she was tired of doing a bunch of construction and she was just tired of the whole process and said, I give up, let's just figure out how to make the existing garage work.
Oh.
The main impetus that led us here was the driveway goes right through the middle of our backyard, and basically half of our backyard is concrete and is a driveway, and we have 3 kids under the age of 5, and we were wanting to remove that safety hazard, and so that's why we were trying to put the garage closer to Dewey. And so my wife basically just said, I'm done, I'm tired, let's just deal with the existing garage, let's see if we can make it a 2-car garage. And so Marva Ellard and I went over there with a tape measure, and we're trying to figure out if we were to move the stairs to the back, could we fit 2 cars, and the opening was still only 20 feet. And so Marva, I'd love it if Marva wants to come up and chat with you as well, but we kind of decided there's just no way of parking 2 cars in that garage. The 20 feet only had about 3 inches on either side of the door, and my wife has a minivan, and we just felt like it would cost a lot of money to move the stairs with the structural stability of the building itself. And so we kind of had to punt that idea, and I had to tell my wife, sorry, but we've got to try to at least pursue this.
What's the outside dimensions of that structure?
24 by Oh, hi. 24 by 20, I believe.
Is it 20 by 24?
24 by 20.
20 wide by 24 deep.
Yes, sir. Where the garage door opening is, it's currently, what is it, 15 feet? About 15 feet wide door in place today with a stair going up to the living upstairs. And so one of our thoughts was to move that stair and put in a wider garage door. That's the picture you're seeing right there. But by doing that, it's still only 20 feet wide, even once you move the stairs. And
Right.
I was told that that would be too tight for 2 cars. And even doing that, I don't solve my concrete problem in the backyard. And so that's when we kind of went back to putting the garage back on Dewey. And the main reason that I loved your idea, Mr. Brown, on putting it in that back corner to have more yard, but my wife was not excited about that after this last big rainstorm, taking the 3 kids into the house with groceries, and she felt like that would be a pretty far walk. And so one of the ideas that Marva and I came up with, I hope you don't mind me throwing you in here with me. You're a pretty good person to lob in here. So one of the ideas that Marva and I came up with is there's an existing carport that's ugly as sin, and trying to, do you have pictures of the current carport?
Not their carport.
You're getting close. Basically, using the existing opening on the current carport. Those are really high-quality pictures. Yes, there you go. So that's the existing structure. And so what I would like to do is take out that nice little awning, if you could use that word, right there. That's what's holding the actual garage door open, and moving the garage. So the butt of the garage, the back of the garage, would be where this garage door closes. Does that make sense? And it would be, we would build it directly off of Dewey, and so it wouldn't back into our backyard anymore. It would be actually much less intrusive into the backyard than this structure is. This would all come down, and that would all become grass and a yard.
What would happen to the existing garage structure?
We spent a lot of money on the upstairs, and so we would keep that, and we'd like to eventually, when our kids get older, put in a pool and make that maybe a pool house if you guys were open to it. Do something with it. Use it right now for storage.
The dimensions and what you're talking about, is that part of the packet that we received, or is this something different that you're proposing?
It's part of the packet you've
Okay,
received.
so do you have a packet?
I don't.
Are we on page 13 of 36 for the proposed site plan? Because I don't understand the dimensions.
Jennifer, you do not have a site plan that shows the location that is discussed. So the first time that we saw this, it was proposed much closer to the house, in approximately the location of the carport on the site plan you have.
Okay.
They revised and moved it towards the back corner, and then between that revision and this meeting, have been discussing moving it closer up to the house. So it may be that we discuss, is that something that would be, is the garage in itself something the commission would consider approving, and is a location closer to the house something we'd consider approving, and if so, maybe continue to get an accurate site plan showing that.
Okay.
So if I
Andy,
could...
can I, for clarification, if we look on page 12, are you telling us that you all would like to consider using the space that where the fence juts into the yard as the area?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay.
Yes, ma'am. Where's page 12? That's 13. Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what I'm thinking. And the reason I like that idea is because I already have a curb cut there, and I don't lose any trees doing that. Whereas putting it in the back corner, there are 5 big trees, 3 really nice pines, and then a really nice lacebark elm. And those trees kind of provide a buffer from the edge apartments. And so I would prefer not to take those down if I could avoid it. And I think by putting it where that fence juts out, it's not going to come... I'm going to get a lot of my backyard back, for lack of a better word.
Mr. Burnett, I have a question about the dimensions, if you can help me understand.
Yeah.
The existing garage is 20 by 24, is that correct?
The one that's in the back right now?
The existing-
Yes, ma'am.
Yeah. And that has a staircase inside that, so it reduces it to about 15-foot opening?
Yes, ma'am.
So you were saying if you take the stairs, put them on the outside, you would then have a 20 by 24 garage for
Outside.
vehicles?
Those are outside walls, so
Right.
inside it's a little tighter.
Right.
But yes, it'd be, like, I think it clears around 19.
Okay, so, and I'm understanding you to say that that's not large enough for 2 cars?
Well, I'm not an expert on this piece, but that's what I've been told.
Well, I'm just looking at the proposed new garage, and
I'm
it's
sorry.
smaller than the existing.
I'm sorry, say that again?
Here, I'm looking at the proposed new garage, and the dimensions of it are smaller than the dimensions of the existing garage. So I am not clear.
Jump in here, I don't know.
Yeah, 20.
That's on page 13. 20 by 22 and 22.6 shows
20-foot
on
wide
the
garage
proposed
is usually,
site plan,
yeah.
which is smaller than the one you mentioned is not large enough for 2 cars.
And
So
I might
just
be
wanna
saying a lot of this
clarify.
wrong.
I think I gave him the wrong dimensions on the existing garage because it's not big enough for 2 cars. I thought he was asking me the question about the new garage when he asked. So Catherine might need to.
I was whispering it to her in the
Clarify.
back room, asking her what they were.
My apologies. We just moved the Preservation and Design Studio to Film Row, so I thought I could walk here. I did walk here. It just took a little longer than I expected. The existing garage is 20 feet wide, which is the end that has the garage door. In the photographs that I just submitted or sent around, near the back, you have a photograph of us measuring the actual size of the existing garage door opening, which is about 12'8". Then the next page, page 5 of 6, shows us measuring the width of the existing garage, retaining the staircase that's currently there at 14 feet 4 inches. So clearly not big enough to park 2 cars.
If you retain the existing staircase.
If you retain the existing staircase, yes,
Inside the building.
correct.
But if you were to move it to the exterior, is that an option?
That's what I
In that
thought
space?
you were...
In my opinion, it's not really an option because of the structural impact that would have. The window head heights are not tall enough for a person to walk through, so we would have to go through some gymnastics to add that. We did go and look at it with the owner.
Standing in the second floor, the windows, the seat, it's about right here.
He's taller than I am.
Yeah.
So we would have to do something on the back. We'd have to raise a dormer. We'd have to do something on the back. And my concern is that, the structure of the garage, if we start hacking into it, who knows what's going to happen. And right now, it stands intact as it has probably since 1905. Maybe the exception might be that the garage door was actually widened at some point.
You also have utilities. The sewer line is running right to the left of that window you're seeing. And so one of my contractors said it's going to be a pretty big task to tie that back in. And his concern was the structural component of moving that.
Well, that's why I was leaning last meeting, but just with a different new garage idea. So I understand the carport, you would retain the opening?
Hey, do we have a good picture of the existing carport?
Yeah, I think
You
that's
would
pretty
take
good.
out the carport?
If you
build a
look
new
at the
garage?
photographs that were just sent
Yeah.
around,
So this is the existing carport.
Right.
Well, we think that Catherine's proposed garage could fit right in that hole, and the back of our new garage, this garage, the current garage goes.
Oh, okay. So you build it within that space.
Within the current cutout, and then the
Oh, you need to go back to the mic so you can be recorded. Sorry about that.
So this,
For posterity.
the proposed garage would fit right into this cutout.
Right.
And then behind that cutout is that pretty ugly structure. Do we have a good picture of the current?
So Katie,
How wide is that?
clearly the site plan we have is no longer
Right.
Correct. We need a new site plan, so I think we would have to continue this case. Can't make a decision based on what the information we have.
I agree. I think we ultimately need a new site plan. I do think because there's been discussion of whether or not it's appropriate to add a new garage at all, it's worth discussing today so that they know how to move forward. But yeah, I think everyone is going to want to see, the initial proposal that had the garage much closer to the house was farther, the garage was farther into the yard, and I think there were some responses that was too close to the house. So I think the commission's going to want to see exactly where it is proposed to go now.
Catherine, there's one item that staff recommended to continue, item 8, which is not connected to the garage. Are you all wanting to see if the items that were approved by staff could be discussed right now and approved today?
Absolutely, and as well as item number 8.
Okay.
Even though staff has recommended a continuance, I think based on the findings that were offered, especially finding number 1, which says that it would be visible but would not have a huge impact on the district or the property, that could also be interpreted as a favorable finding.
Just so I understand, is the proposed garage is smaller than the existing garage?
It's a different proportion. The limiting factor on the existing garage is that it's 20 feet wide at the garage doors, the existing garage doors.
Right.
Did I say that right? 20 feet wide. The new garage is 22.5 feet
More of
wide.
a normal two-car.
Right, which is, the typical deal. So the depth of it is a little bit less than the existing garage, but the width of it is more conducive to parking 2 cars next to each other.
Correct.
Right.
What would be the use of the existing garage if you have this new garage?
Eventually, when my kids get older, to pool house.
So the downstairs might be, the upstairs is an apartment type setting, and
Essentially
then
bringing that down, basically just...
enclosing that?
Yes, that would be the goal 3 years from now. For the time being, just storage.
Because to me, it's a little more palatable thinking of the existing garage as another building rather than a garage.
That was my comment, yeah.
And then this new garage is the garage. Why have 2 garages if you can't even get a car back to that one? So, I mean, how do we look at it, the semantics of that? Does that make a difference?
Yeah, that's
On secondary structures?
Could you clarify for me that the garage that you have now is suitable as a one-car garage, just not two?
Yes, sir.
Thanks.
We do have some 3D drawings of a proposed, we started with the garage there in the position of the carport, so we went back to that after we got the staff report, and we've been working on those feverishly for the past couple of days. They were printing as I left. So I have those available for you, even though you're probably, you can be able to see what it would look like.
How, this new idea, how close does the new garage get to does it come to the flush with the fence?
Yes.
On the east-
back of the garage would be flush with the current front face of the garage at the carport. So it literally fits right inside.
Okay, but the other side, it doesn't come past the fence, does it?
No.
Fence line?
The front is in alignment with the fence.
It does, okay.
The fence is pretty much on the property line, is that right?
I think it's set back, it might be, it's set back further than the guidelines require a fence to be set back on the side yard.
Okay.
So it just sits right in there.
Mr. Burnett, staff is recommending approval of items 1, 2, 6, and 9 with conditions. Did you read those conditions?
No, sorry.
Okay, if you look at page 18 of 19 of the staff report, you'll have a look at those. And if you agree with those, then I would like to move approval.
Page 18 is the specific findings. Oh, I see, the conditions at the very top.
At the top, there's two conditions, A and B.
There's some fencing that's marked on the site plan as being 8 feet, and so that was just to clarify that if it's already 8 feet and it's staying and you're not touching it, it can stay, but that when you replace it, it has to go back at 6 feet, so.
No problem.
Okay. So you agree with both of those conditions?
That'll be fine.
Okay, unless anyone has any comment on those items, I would like to move.
Comment on the
approval.
garage, but not that.
Right, but items 1, 2, 6, and 9, to move us along a little bit, I would like to move approval. With conditions, yes.
Okay, of 1, 2, 6, and 9?
Yes.
Okay. Is there a second?
Second.
Jeff, okay. Been moved by Neil Crank Clements, second by Jeff Parker. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? I keep doing that, I'm sorry.
Hi, I'm Jeff.
You sure you're not Spider-Man? Okay. Did I say all opposed? Okay, the motion's approved.
I think I struggle with adding of the second garage. As it is now, it would be a garage. The other building is still a garage, because the existing garage is a usable space for one car at least. So I don't see how we can get around the guidelines. That's just my thought on that, to add another garage.
Well, I agree, so if this is some sort of straw vote, if we're going to continue it, but you need to know that, then I also agree with that.
My comment is still like the first time, that if it's not, it seems like that, excuse me, that if the garage was not usable as a two-car garage, we've had some, but anyhow, if we decide that this garage was not usable as a modern garage, then the question is, where do you put a new garage? I still don't like the garage closer to the house. If you put it where you're talking about, the front face of the garage was right at the property line, and unless you park always inside of the garage, any cars will be blocking the sidewalk. It'll, be out close to the curb. The other proposal you had to put the garage at the back of the property had some driveway in front of the garage where you could, guests could park or whatever. That kind of, and also the idea of having two structures close to the house. I understand your wife's concern, but we all walk from our garages across the backyard to get to our house. But that depends on if we decide that the existing garage, is not functional. I think it ought to be functional as a two-car garage, personally, but that's just me. What do you think? Mr. Parker? Anybody else?
Katie, is there a guideline, I'm sorry, is there a guideline to additions to accessory buildings?
We have guidelines for additions to existing structures. There's not something that's specific to adding on to an accessory structure. So I think, and we haven't seen that all too often. I know we've seen some, Alan did it to his own garage, right? You expanded your own garage?
Well, I expanded the front out.
Well, we have seen some garages modified to accommodate.
But I have to clarify, since you brought it up, it was only 16 feet deep, which is not big enough to park a car in.
Yeah. So yes, the commission has reviewed and approved alterations to existing garages to help them to accommodate vehicles. Whether or not that would work with the configuration of the current garage, I don't know. But we haven't really seen anything to illustrate that one way or another. But
would that be something you'd consider?
Like I stated before, the existing garage is in a delicate condition, and I would be really leery of making changes to it to put a staircase in any other location than where it's at right now. As we said, the window head height is not tall enough for a person to pass through if we selected a window to pass through as the new door, say, for example, on the back of the garage, which is what we had looked at previously. We would be severing a major beam that holds together, that bands together that that roof form, that pyramidal roof form. So,
One of the other problems that we haven't done a very good job expressing with pictures is the existing layout of the backyard is pretty miserable in that you have this carport that's sticking literally back abutting the house, and then you drive through your backyard. Your whole half of my backyard is a big
I agree with that.
concrete mess.
That's why I was pushing for the back
Yeah.
and a sidewalk coming to the house. You could have an umbrella in the garage for your wife.
So, I'll let you sell that to her.
I have several comments to make depending on where we continue to go with the discussion. We've just arrived with some 3D sketches of what a garage in that location set at that elevation might look like, which is very similar to what we presented at the last meeting. The biggest exception is that it's set down at sidewalk grade level, which makes it 4 feet lower than it was previously, which makes it also nicely coming to about the top of the existing 6-foot fence.
The idea there was that you wouldn't see the garage from the house any more than you see the existing fence, and you would get rid of the carport. Marva, do you want to chat with us?
This is a general observation. I understand what the ordinance says about one usable space, but there have been a plethora, and I've always wanted to use that word in a sentence, so I got to, of demolitions granted on garages so people can build 2-car garages. So I think we're sending mixed signals to the neighborhoods about what is appropriate. So we want to see the original structure kept. I don't know that we think it has to be kept as a garage, but we want to see it kept because we see it as a significant contributing structure. The idea of a garage on Dewey is definitely palatable. Andy gives me credit for this sunken garage idea, but I don't remember who came up with that. But anyway, I went over there to see the impact that this garage would have to the house. And it was not as detrimental to the house as I imagined. It really stayed away from the house and really didn't even impact those exterior stairs that much. And so his backyard is cut in two, as you all know from the site plan, with concrete coming from the north and concrete coming from the east. And so it seemed like trying to figure out a way so the backyard could kind of be put back together as a backyard was a desirable outcome.
Marva, I would be wary of overgeneralizing to say that we've allowed demos for homeowners to build 2-car garages. There's been a lot more to the cases than that. Maybe the building was dilapidated beyond repair. I can't speak to specific cases, but just so it's on record that we're not allowing garages to be torn down just so someone can park 2 cars in them.
I second that because I would rather not any garages be torn down ever, to have a new one put up. I want them to stay in it as long as they can. This garage is usable and currently for one car. So it's not in a position to be torn down for a 2. So that was the cases.
And we don't want to tear it down. We spend a lot of money on the upstairs. We want to keep it. It's just this time of year, especially in hail season, it would be great to have both cars covered without some ugly structure. This structure that's there now, that's on your last page, that's almost 18 feet deep, and it looks like sin. I mean, it's bad. And it's 2 feet away from my house, those wood posts. And so we're just trying to come up with a good solution to that. Something that keeps you guys happy. It's a win for us. That's all we're asking, is something to cover both cars, if possible, without taking off your side view mirrors.
I'd like to interject that I went by the other day, and I'd shown it before you purchased it, and my client was not as brave as you have been to jump into this house. I think it's a great house.
I appreciate that.
And what you're doing to it is fabulous. But what they were thinking about, the original owners, to put the garage in this position, I have no idea what they were thinking about. I mean, I think that southeast corner, like other ones that you have shown us, that would have been the place for a garage, or we suggested before, right? This, what we would have just been shown, I think it just makes it even more awkward to have another accessory structure back there. I personally would rather see an addition to the existing garage on one level to get another car in there with a deck above it or something like that. That would be my choice. If it were my property, that's what I would want to do to it. Does that make sense?
Keep the driveway access the same?
Driveway's all there?
To where you're still driving across the yard to get into it?
Correct. That way you can get your cars are both in a secure covered garage?
But does that solve basically the backyard being an asphalt? I mean, what we're trying to do is get eventually a pool and grass and trees in the backyard versus a parking lot.
You'd still have, wouldn't there be plenty of room for that along this whole southeastern quadrant of the lot?
So placing the garage is about making your backyard better or fitting 2 cars in a garage?
It's both. It's mainly about 2 cars, but it's also trying to create some green space back there.
Was there ever any evidence, is there any evidence there was ever a driveway on the east? We talked about that a while back.
Yeah, trying to come in from 14th Street.
Yeah, the big tree there, and was there ever a driveway there?
That was my first preference, was to come in from the east. The problem with doing that is since they have planted a bunch of really nice tall, there's huge live oak, there's a bunch of lacebark elms, it's really going to make my neighbor mad to come in and cut all those down. And then I also have a PAC unit and a regular AC unit, all that it would be a substantial amount of money, and you'd lose a bunch of trees.
Yep, that's what I remember.
I've made this point before many times when I've appeared before the commission and when I was staff to the commission, that the preamble or the front part, the introduction of the guidelines, is critical to take into consideration when making decisions. It speaks to preserving the historic districts, but also making sure that alterations can be made to make those properties more habitable for modern living. I mean, it expressly says that. And when the commission has the discretion to make decisions based on certain options or opportunities, I think that it's critical that those introductory thoughts, those basic foundational thoughts, are referenced, because that should force the decision making, not a very regimented approach to this or that, and also alternate suggestions about how somebody should be using their property, and whether it's, I mean, Andy has 3 little kids, and I mean, what other family isn't going to have little kids at some point? When I went over there on Saturday, both cars were parked behind that carport, and the 3 kids are in the backyard. I mean, you know, their parents are back there too, so. But, I mean, it's crazy to think that kids should be playing next to cars in their backyard. And it makes no sense. I mean, there's a development off of Robinson where, properties that are very familiar to everybody, I think they were like on 21st Street and Robinson. No, wait, that's Broadway, sorry, 21st Street and Broadway, where we know by the Sanborn maps there were a half a dozen structures on these 2 lots together. And what is going back and what was approved by this commission very recently is a single-family home and a garage, 2 structures where there had been 5, 6 structures. So this, in my opinion, arbitrary decision to not allow the additional structures doesn't make sense to me based on the intent of the ordinance and the guidelines.
I appreciate your comments, Catherine. Thank you. Mr. Burnett, how long have you lived in this house? When did you purchase it?
2 months. I purchased it about 8 months ago, but
You were aware that it was in a historic preservation neighborhood at that time? Have you had a look at the guidelines? We'd like to know this whenever people are buying homes in the HB.
Yeah, no, I mean, I knew it was in historic preservation, but I had not read the guidelines.
But there's nothing in the guidelines that prohibits what's being requested.
And just one final point. The way that Catherine has drawn this, standing in my backyard.
This one?
Yes, sir, this one. You will not see or notice this at all because it's just the existing fence. All we're doing is putting a roof over the existing fence and removing the carport behind it. And so from my vantage point, when I'm sitting at my house or sitting in my backyard, I never see this because I already have this fence cut out. All I'm doing is putting a roof over that fence cutout and a garage, obviously. But for me, it's a big win because I'm able to remove that carport and I'm able to plant some trees and do some fun stuff with the existing driveway.
I wanted to clarify just one thing, Catherine, your comment about the driveway traversing the yard, that every single mid-block property we have with a detached garage, the driveway traverses the backyard, and we approve a half a dozen driveway gates a month so that people can secure their backyard and their pets and their kids can play in their yard, which usually includes the driveway. So I certainly understand the concern with the paving, and it is an excessive amount of paving in the backyard, but I think people frequently deal with the fact that their driveway and their garage have to be accessed via their yard, and people find ways to accommodate that. So I just wanted to say that that's not necessarily a unique condition.
I think in most cases, those garages hug one side yard or the other, as opposed to going right straight through, bisecting front from back. I think it's also important to note that this property is an edge property, that there's commercial on the other side of it, and on this very block, across the street, across the side street, what is it? Dewey, there's a two-story garage which fronts, the property fronts 13th Street. The garage faces Dewey. It's not in Heritage Hills because the line is the half block back from 13th, but it's very similar. It's a two-car garage. The driveway is 2 cars wide, and it's clearly a historic garage.
So as we're going around the horseshoe, I would just say that I think it's no secret that I feel our current garage guidelines are far too restrictive. I think we've gone far too far in the other direction in limiting what they can do. I think it's very important that the garages be functional, that we have that opportunity to park cars off the street and not clutter the landscape with those cars and have a place to put them.
Or park on the curb.
Or park on the curb. I think the struggle with me for this one is that there was never a garage at that location. I think there are other things going on with the site that certainly allow me to think about unique circumstances for this case. I think between what you presented, the latest one that came in with the flat roof and up closer to the street, I'm not so much a fan of that one as where you've placed it farther back in the corner away from the house, but it actually has the roof on it based on what you've presented here today. But I think I understand the functionality and having a usable garage. That's very important to me in my house in an historic district, and I understand wanting to have that ability for yourself.
So you've got 7 commissioners and 7 opinions. What's that?
Right.
You've got 7 opinions on how it should be.
We want to do what is right for the neighborhood, what's right for the area. I've talked to Katie 15 times. I've had her come to the house. I mean, we're trying to find a good solution. I just want to be able to have both cars out of the hail. And I'm open to, if you guys insist that it needs to be in the back corner, I'll just tell my wife to buy a really good umbrella. And that's all right. I mean, and if it could be here for me, being here, it doesn't feel any different than it currently is because I already have this monstrosity there anyways, and this is a much better solution. So we want to be flexible. I would love to put this to bed at some points and not come back here for the next 5 months. And so I guess for me, give us some direction, and it sounds like maybe you guys aren't.
I think you've got two commissioners that would probably vote for back in the corner and make it so you'd have a functional two-car garage. So I don't know about the others. It sounds like there's some that don't want you to build a new garage at all.
I would be good, I'm good with that, to be honest
So you've
with
got three. I don't know about Joe. Where are you following this whole thing?
I'm being so quiet today. I think it's a very tough situation. We just have to approach each one, case by case. I wish that the approaching from the front, because it seems like, I don't know that solves the problem either, though. That just puts the driveway on the side of the house. I do think that we should be able to come up with something perhaps. However, we have had other situations where we could, there were reasons that we could not get to the two-car garage.
There what?
There's been other situations where we could not, get to have two cars in the garage. Wasn't the last one where we discussed the pergola, and is it similar?
But that was a little different because it was just a cover. It wasn't a garage replacement or anything.
Right.
And also mitigating thing in here, they're not planning on demolishing anything, just converting
Right.
it to a guest house, I guess you call
I
it.
mean, I'm more favorable to, the flat roof is not very appealing to me. I do think that at the back of the yard, to me it is, as far as the location, there's other ones that are like that.
So if we were to move this to the back where Mr. Brown originally suggested, could we vote on that today?
We could vote. I don't,
Does it do anything? I mean, do we still need to come back next month? I want to be sensitive to these people's time, too.
we can vote.
The commission can certainly vote on what's been in their packet and what's before them right now, if that's something that you're willing to, that you would want to have approved. I know you were discussing revising that design because you weren't happy with it, so I don't know what the vote will be, but...
Okay, so that would be putting it back in the back where you had initially drawn it.
The way it was submitted.
I'm going to let Mr. Brown call my wife.
I've got a list of numbers.
That's
so.
fine. I'd like,
I will
it sounds like if we wait next month for this isn't what you guys want anyways. So let's at least try what we had initially drawn. Catherine, unless you've got any suggestions.
Okay.
That sounds good to me.
This could be a split vote. Somebody want to make a motion of some type? Approve or deny or continue?
Would this be on the southeast corner or on the, where we're looking at today?
I think it's as presented,
As presented.
As presented?
that we're talking about possibly.
That,
Yeah,
Yes, sir.
right, the original,
not today.
not the revised that came out today. Can't make a motion.
That's this.
Well, if you don't feel strongly enough to deny, I will make a motion to approve HPCA 15-00020, item 3 and 4. Let's see. Is that what my thing would be? I'm sorry, I'm slow. Let's see, with the specific, let's see, I'm not really sure how I'm going to do that.
I was trying to write some things down, too.
I'd like to, if I could jump in, I think
Please.
any approval to me would require that the existing structure is converted to not a garage, and that concrete's removed, the paving's removed, basically. So it's,
But we can't make that a condition.
but that's kind of that was kind of the
Maybe that's
condition.
his intention later, but we can't base approval now on what he may or may
That's the
not.
whole reason I'm doing this, so.
Right, so I'm saying that you won't have two garages in the end.
The site plan submitted for approval shows the drive from the street to the existing garage going away.
Taken out. Right.
So you would not have drive access to that, what is now your garage. So it's going to be a building with a garage door on it until you decide to do something else with it.
We were trying to, yes, that's right.
Right.
The goal would be to eventually remove that garage door if you guys were in favor.
Right.
We just didn't have time to get it all done.
I guess my point is, there won't be two garages.
Right. No, I understand that.
Okay, with the condition to remove the existing driveway, and I think that's all,
As shown.
as shown.
If you have any findings that support adding an additional structure, that sort of, just since we've had similar applications that have been denied previously, just to, sorry to put you
That's
on the
okay, I welcome all help. How would I like to say this? I'm going to say with section 4.4.3, that construction of a new garage should follow the historic setback for a garage on the property or setback patterns of other garages in the streetscape or historic district. Would that satisfy as a,
Okay. Is there a second?
yes?
Second.
The portion that goes to the existing garage. Is that correct, Chairman?
Okay, was that changed?
She asked me, as shown in the site plan. Removing the existing driveway as shown in the site plan.
George? Second that?
Second.
Okay, so moved by Joe Meacham, second by George Massey. We probably ought to raise hands on this one. All in favor?
Aye. Oh, hand up.
4. All opposed?
All right.
Okay, so the motion doesn't carry. You need 5 of this body of 4 for a motion to carry.
Let's actually, 4 and 4. So. All right.
Can you explain what that means? In order for action that is proposed by motion to pass, then you have to have a majority of the commission. Since there are 8 of them here, well, even if the 9th one was present, the majority of that number is 5. The vote was 4-4, which was a tie rather than a majority. We understand that part, therefore, there's no action. And so another motion could be proposed.
So that motion failed.
Or does that mean additional discussion could also occur? It could occur.
Yep.
Additional discussion could occur. You're asking what can happen now. Another motion could occur, let's say for denial. I would imagine based on what just happened, the vote would be identical. You could get a motion to continue the item with the idea that maybe the commissioner that is absent today might have a different vote if that commissioner was present at the next meeting, and assuming that all of the ones that are here today who voted in favor were present today. Is it also possible to address points that the commissioners who did not vote in favor, address their concerns to see if they might be swayed for another vote?
Yeah, I was going to say that we've received basically nothing about the condition of the existing garage other than photos, and so it might be helpful, since the case has kind of been made that it's not usable, to have some more discussion about that. I know we've talked about it, but that might help to sway, I would imagine, might help sway some
The
opinions
intent
on
of
it.
the additional photographs today was to show you that dimensionally, it doesn't meet the 2-car opportunity as was expressed at the last meeting. We have really no other options except to address the comments that were presented at the first meeting, which I think that we have diligently and responsibly done. So as you can see on pages 4 and 6, that dimensionally it doesn't serve as a two-car garage. As far as the condition, it's not going to fall down tomorrow, and without an extensive structural design or actually implementing a design process, we don't know what those situations might be on paper, let alone someone coming in and actually begin demolition and find that it causes irreparable harm to the existing garage, which is not something that my client wishes to do. He wishes to have the existing building remain intact as it is, which I think is highly commendable, instead of trying to make an argument for tearing it down just so that another structure could be built. I think inarguably this site is of quite a size that it could sufficiently take on another structure as small as this one, which is only 450 square feet.
I think you need to be addressing those to this side.
I was answering the questioner. I have written several comments down. I don't know if any of those comments would be favorable for hearing or not.
I think, Catherine, it gets down to the folks that didn't vote for it just didn't feel like the guidelines allow justification that it won't hold two cars, basically. But that's not enough. So I think that's the bottom line.
The guidelines do not prohibit the action that's being requested.
Coach us up a little bit. What's important to you guys? What do we need? I would love to finish this up just as much as everybody else in this room. What can we do moving forward to win your approval, your feedback, whatever that language needs to look like? How can I get both cars out of the hail? How can we try to get this ugly carport out of our backyard? Help me understand what can we do?
Tear it down, right? Start there.
Yes, ma'am.
I think you're concerned about the paving. There are permeable paving options that would reduce the amount of concrete there. I just can't get past, it is a usable garage. It is a garage in good condition. I'm just thinking, what if a family of 6 or 8 comes and they have a 2-car garage, but they need space for 3 cars? Where does it stop? I understand the hail issue, but this is a historic neighborhood. This is the condition of these garages. I don't know what the answer is, but I don't feel that the addition of a second garage is warranted, and that is my opinion.
Jennifer, Heather, Greg, you guys all in the same camp. Is there anything?
I'm in agreement fully with Mila in regards to everything that she said. The other thing is the money that you would save not building an additional garage, you could put an addition onto the existing garage. I don't know, you can shake your head, but I don't know cost. And that's not really what we're talking about here. We don't take that into consideration. But I agree with Mila's statements, and that's why I voted against it as well.
Cool.
I think for me, it may be a matter of additional information. For example, is it possible to add an addition to the existing garage? You said no, you don't think that it's structurally possible, but we need to have that evidence if we're going to have some kind of unique circumstance for why this property should have I'm hesitant to call it a second garage. If we're talking about this new building being the garage and the old building becoming an accessory building, I need to see that old garage become an accessory building, not looking like there are 2 garages on this property. I definitely agree with this side of the horseshoe that it needs to be set back. You've provided photographic evidence of where garages are on kind of the surrounding properties that are at the back
of the property. It just, to give you a vote today for approval for something that, there are just some pieces that seem to be missing.
Yeah, there's one right across the street.
And so for me, it's more about what does this accessory building, the old garage, look like? What does the new garage? I understand we've got some sketches. It just clarification for me for why, as you said earlier, this property is large enough to hold 2 additional buildings. I'm sure this doesn't violate the new ordinance that we have about green space, so we're safe there. But it feels a little bit incomplete and in pieces of evidence for me.
Okay. Katie, the staff report had something about the ratio issue. That doesn't seem to be an issue, right, honestly?
We have a very general guideline that talks about not significantly altering the ratio of built to open space.
Right.
There are citywide regulations about how much you can build out a lot, and they're nowhere near that. So as far as an actual numeric calculation, that's not an issue for them. It would just be whether we think an additional 450 square foot structure is dramatically altering the built to open space ratio.
Catherine, on the existing garage, I was hearing from Andy that it was more of a taking up space that could be a pool and things like that in the future, to not have an addition to the existing garage for another car. Is it more structural? I wasn't hearing the structural part for an addition.
I don't remember hearing him say that, so unless that happened before I got here. But, I mean, I think clearly when you look at the site plan, you can see that an addition to the garage is, there's still a lot of backyard. It's a big lot. My primary concern is, one, the structural. That's one primary concern. I have 2 primary concerns. And the other is that we have a homeowner who is adamant about saving and preserving a historic structure in its existing condition, which is nearly original. The only change maybe having been the garage door itself and the size of it. And yet, there are suggestions being made to actually put an addition and change the character, the exterior character of this historic structure in favor of not allowing an additional structure which has no connection to any of the existing structures on the lot, which does not, in my opinion, does not really follow what the spirit of the guidelines is, nor general preservation thought.
Well, I'm agreeing with you there. If you came back and opposed an addition to this garage and changed the historic garage, I would not be in favor of that. I'd rather see a new garage in the back of the property, as you say, than change the existing building, the historic building. The other thing I was wondering, are there any houses in this area that have large lots that have 2 structures, accessory structures, a garage or maybe a guest house, or was this be totally unusual? Can you think of any?
We haven't undertaken a survey specifically for this project. We did previously undertake such a study based on the county assessor's information, and from that there were several properties that had more than one structure.
More than one accessory structure.
More than one accessory structure. Keep in mind that it wasn't until recently that National Register nominations, and of course the one for Heritage Hills is very old, it doesn't specifically talk about individual properties except for a few. But today the National Register nominations go through and give a verbal description of each and every property. Whether or not the garages are there or not, it's not going to make a difference as to whether the district is eligible. So in some ways, accessory structures are throwaway structures. The only time they become important is when they're high style. And I think that this particular garage, because it's 2 stories and has a very articulated roof, that it becomes, close to being a high style garage. So
yep.
it may have been noted, but the house, that doesn't mean that the property would have been ineligible for the National Register without the garage or with an additional accessory structure.
What I hear Heather saying is maybe a master plan, which, I mean, we have not seen a drawing that showed, here's the pool, here's the garage, and maybe just an idea of what the front of the accessory building would look like. If, you know, if that was approved as the plan for the future or something, then maybe that would,
I don't know if that would convince.
would that help anybody? No?
Any
Some,
of this
yes.
sway anybody over here? I don't think so.
I mean, the only thing you were going to change on the garage was the door, right?
Yeah, we're just talking round and round. This is really good, but...
So I guess we'll continue?
Yeah, let's continue.
We still had one item.
Number 8.
Had item number 8. And Katie, could you, I'm not really not sure what staff's thoughts were here.
You know, initially they had proposed a parapet and then the railing set inside the parapet, so it was going to be much less visible. Without the parapet, it'll be more noticeable. That being said, we've approved railings in locations exactly like this on numerous occasions, especially when there is ready access to that space. There is call it a door, call it a full-length window. There is easy access out onto that deck that clearly was there historically. So I put continue in there because I didn't know how the commission would feel about the railing in such a visible location without the parapet, but I do think it's something that's reversible and that the commission has approved similar type structures in the past.
Were you proposing the parapet because it's missing, or it was a solution to the...
There's a historic image that shows parapets in that location that they were going to reconstruct.
That was the original proposal. It would actually be kind of a big deal to reconstruct that up there. It would be a much simpler solution to just put the railing and not have to construct something that isn't there anymore.
So that's page 28 and 9. These are the two different ways of doing it.
And so you don't feel like that there's any way that you could reconstruct now that you have documentation for it, a photograph, correct?
The foundation there is sandstone, and it's not doing really well, and so the general contractor I had come out said it's going to be a big deal, even if you just do this out of stucco and wood. He said, ideally, you just do a very simple, clean railing.
And it is simple and clean and fairly, it's visually unobtrusive and fairly easily reversible at some point in the future if that's an endeavor you want to take at some point later on. But the guardrail is presented, I think works fine and is consistent with what we've approved in the past.
Is that a motion?
Yes. I'd move to approve HPCA 15-00020, item 8. Install guardrail for East Solarium, with the specific findings. In the staff report, items numbered 1, 2, and 3.
I do have a question. I'll second it, but I do have a question, and unfortunately, Rita's left the room. In the agenda for number 8, it says reconstruct parapet and install guardrail, and the reconstruct parapet's been taken off of the items for consideration for number 8. Do we have to address that in some way since it was on the agenda?
I think we can just say with condition that the parapet is not to be reconstructed.
Okay.
Okay.
Yeah.
With the condition that the parapet is not to be reconstructed, but it just be solely the guardrail.
A second.
Okay, been moved by Jeff Parks and seconded by Heather Clemmer. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right. Is that passed? Well, now we have to have a continue.
Going to continue 3 and 4. Are we continuing everything to July, or what are we going to do?
Just 3 and 4, right?
Yes.
We've approved
Everything
the
else.
others.
Yes.
So the next meeting is May 29th. We would need any new information really by the end of next week at the very latest to do that meeting. I would push to continue everything to that July 1 meeting, but I feel like you've got a fairly thorough, we know what we're working with at this point. So if we think that's doable, we can do May 29th.
Let's do that.
Okay. Move to continue to May 29, items numbered 3 and 4.
Thank you. Sorry, everybody.
Second.
Not quite done yet. Is there a second? Kevin by Jeff Parks and second by Neela Coyne Clements. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay. Continued. Items 3 and 4. Thank you. We did 8 while you were out. All right. On to the next item.
HPCA 15-00030 at 806 Northwest 16th Street, Mesta Park, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of EBS Homes LLC, Emily Stanley and Anthony Kim by Bill Mahoney for certificate of appropriateness to 1, replace 29 non-historic windows, elective. And the commission reviewed this previously and had just requested that they come back. Alternate. Sorry, let me turn that off mid-sentence. With alternate window, an alternate window product that more closely met the guidelines.
Okay. Are you the owners?
No, I'm Bill Mahoney. This is
Oh, you're
my
the con-
sister, Carla
okay.
Stanley.
Okay.
I'm one of the owner's mothers.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Thank you.
Go ahead.
No, go ahead.
We submitted a proposal from Colby and Colby for the
Yep.
divided light windows, but if those are not appropriate, if you're not going to approve those, we'll do the 1/1 so that it will, we don't have to worry about the divided light.
Yeah.
So basically, they're replacing windows where the historic windows are long gone.
Yeah.
So we're not sure what was there historically. They've based the Munton pattern off of the few remaining historic windows in the house, but we don't actually know that that's exactly what was there. Staff felt like what was proposed was very compatible and appropriate with the front of the house, but if for some reason the commission disagreed, they could simply do 1/1 for all of the windows.
Which one are you wanting to, which is the one that you would like to install?
The Prairie Style 3/1.
The divided?
The divided line.
That's the one that you prefer?
Yes. Only
All the way around the house?
No, just in the front.
In the front.
That faces the street.
Okay.
Staff's in agreement that that's possible.
I just put 1/1s in the back.
That seems appropriate. Let's take a motion on the last one.
I move to approve HPCA 15-00030 at 806 Northwest 16th, or to read my deal, or I don't know what I'm saying.
Was that a motion?
That's a motion with the specific, with the specific findings that the proposed work will not have an adverse effect on the historic character of the district and property and complies with the relevant guidelines.
Is there a second?
Second.
So moved by Joe Meacham, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right.
Right.
Fast. You made it.
Yay!
That was easy. The last one.
HPCA 15-00048 at 915 Northwest 14th Street, Heritage Hills, Ward 6. Consideration and possible action on application of Brad and Heather Wilson by Kent Hoffman Construction for certificate of appropriateness to 1 construct addition, elective.
Is the applicant? Yeah, there you are.
Yes. I'm Ken Hoffman, and this is the owner, Heather Wilson.
Welcome. You all sign in?
Yep.
Okay. Any comments on this one?
So this is a non-historic addition to a non-historic addition that's already on the house, right?
That's correct, yes.
Well, I think it's a superb addition to the house. I think it enhances the overall scope of the whole home, and I think it'd be great for resale value in the future.
Is that a motion?
I move to approve HPCA 15-00048 with the findings in the staff recommendation in section D of the staff report.
Second.
Moved by Greg Eddington, second by George Massey. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? All right, approved. That was easy.
Thank you.
We're on a roll. Thank you. All right, Katie's out. Where are we? You want to take a break?
Might be better suited.
Let's take, let's see here, let's take a break for a few minutes. We'll resume at 3:20. Okay? Restroom break. We are back in order. Katie, you ready to call the next case?
Other business. A, resolution to initiate a proposal to designate the Marion Hotel as a historic landmark, 110 Northwest 10th Street. Right?
Aren't we in the right place? Okay, I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong side.
Downtown Business District, Ward 6, initiate proposal to designate the Marion Hotel as a historic landmark, HL overlay. At our previous meeting, Neela, under items from commissioners, asked that we put this item on the agenda to initiate this process. Designation of a property as a historic landmark is a two-step process for the commission, that first we'll vote to initiate that proposal, and then staff will prepare a report, and we will vote to designate. And then it'll go through the rest of the rezoning process to be reviewed by Planning Commission and by City Council. So this is the first step in that process.
I have a question, Katie.
Yes.
It didn't say that the building was listed on the National Register in your report.
It is listed within the Automobile Alley Historic District, so it's
Thank you.
contributing to the district. Yep.
Well, I'm excited about this. I think this is an opportunity for the HP Commission to reach out and protect some of our buildings that are outside the residential areas. And that's why I initiated this, and I'd like to go ahead and make a motion to initiate the proposal to designate the Marion Hotel as a historic landmark, directing staff to prepare a report addressing the designation criteria and other considerations, and adopt the resolution provided as part of the staff report.
A second.
Okay, it was moved by Eva Crank-Clement, seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Okay, it's approved. Item's approved.
Okay. Alan and Neela or Rita don't leave without signing
Okay.
resolution.
Okay.
I always forget to have you guys do that. Next is SPUD 813 at 112 Northwest 15th Street, Heritage Hills East, Ward 6, consideration and possible action regarding a request from GEF Investment LLC by Paul Lefevre of Williams Box, Forshee, and Bullard PC for recommendation from the Historic Preservation Commission to rezone from Historic Landmark Overlay District to a simplified planned unit development, with development occurring under HL zoning regulations with specific uses called out. In shorthand, to rezone to allow for automobile storage. Just to clarify a little bit, this is a recommendation from the HP Commission that will be forwarded on to the Planning Commission and the City Council, so they will review and take action on this as well. The Commission's area of expertise and purview is generally what the impact of the rezoning will have on the historic character of the property and the district. I know there are a lot of concerns about use that often come into play with these rezonings, and obviously we have people from the community to address those, and the commission can address those in whatever way you see fit. But the commission's role in weighing in on this is supposed to be focused on the impact on the character of the districts.
Okay, so with that in mind, is representative for the applicant here? There he is.
I'm Paul Lefevre, 522 Colcord Drive. With me today is Pam Thompson, who is the managing partner for the property owner, and Scott Arnold, who is the manager of the Yellow Cab company on 14th Street. Now, this property that we're talking about fronts on 15th. It is directly behind or north of the Yellow Cab office that fronts on 14th Street. The subject site is zoned R4 and has been for a very, very long time. The Yellow Cab people purchased their office site on 14th almost 30 years ago. They leased, at the same time, this little area that opens on 15th Street for a storage facility They leased it for 5 years, and then they purchased it under a subsidiary name. Now, prior to Yellow Cab using or moving into the site, those of you all who are longtime Oklahoma City folks will recall that there were a series of car dealerships. Back in my 20s, there was a Porsche Audi dealership there, and it was followed by some other things for a period of time. Before the Yellow Cab folks even got involved 30 years ago, on the site, a little paint and body shop had been constructed and used as a parking area for the car dealership. Now, I don't know how many years ago that paint and body shop was actually constructed. I suspect it's at least 40, if not more, but I don't have documentation on that. Now, this site, since the Yellow Cab folks have been utilizing it for the last 30 years, is used for storage and very light body work, and let me explain that. When new cabs are brought online, and all the cabs are owned by owner-operators who license through the Yellow Cab company, but the little shop there simply puts on the exterior lights and the equipment inside the car. That's the extent of the body work that goes on. It's just to get a vehicle ready to be a cab, all right? So there's a fairly small number of vehicles at any one time that are undergoing these kind of renovations. Also, from time to time, parked there is that if a owner-operator is going on vacation, and a number of these owner-operators are, their families are overseas, so they may leave for several weeks, if not longer at a time, they ask to park their vehicle there so that it could be at a secured location, and that's allowed. But the point being is, there is no functioning day-to-day traffic. There's no staging traffic out of this site. It's for the limited purpose of storage and getting vehicles prepared to be cabs. Now, it's become an issue in recent months that this use is a commercial use and not appropriate for a R4 zone property. It's apparently been inappropriately used for at least 30, if not 40 and 50 years. So we're trying to remedy that by asking for a SPUD, a Simplified Plan Unit Development, to be approved by the Planning Commission and the City Council. The purpose of it is as follows, is that the R4 character will stay the same. The authority of this body and all the rules with the HP designation will stay the same. The only functional change is to just allow the continued use of the site for the same way it's been used for the last 30 years, which is for the storage and very modest body function activity. We are hoping that we can gain your support and a recommendation to the Planning Commission to allow us to proceed there. And certainly, we're available to answer any questions that you might have.
Okay, does anybody have any questions for the applicant?
I think my concern with spudding this is that the current use circumvents the city zoning authority.
oftentimes I see when someone doesn't like the use of a property, their answer is to spud it. And like I said, I feel like that circumvents the city's zoning authority. And because of that, I would not be able to recommend approval. Not approval. What are we doing?
Recommending.
Recommending approval.
Recommending or not?
I would ask that, have they been a good neighbor to everybody? And the staff report is not indicating that they've ever come before them for a certificate of appropriateness. And that the other would be, have there been any problems or
Complaints?
has the neighborhood had problems with this use in the past?
Well, let me put this in context just a little bit, if I may. The Yellow Cab office on 14th Street is zoned C4. It consists of 2 lots. The lot immediately to the west of the office, also on 14th Street, was purchased 15 years or more ago. It had a very dilapidated structure on it at the time. Long and short is that was demolished at some point. The Yellow Cab folks came to this body seeking to utilize that third lot as a parking space. It was denied, and so it's not used as such. It just is a grassy, vacant lot right now. Now, the area to the north, the R4 property, and I know this is no excuse, but I think in my 20 years of doing this municipal land law use, it is not uncommon to find people with uses that aren't technically appropriate, and at some point in time, it behooves us all to figure out how to pull things together there. And so the point being is, when these folks acquired the property from the car dealership, and it was being functioning as a paint and body shop with cars parked there, it's no excuse, but they just blindly assumed, well, the car dealership's been using it commercially for years and if not decades, thinking it was fine. Now, it's technically inappropriate for that use to be occurring here, and it has been for the 40 or 50 years this has been used commercially. There's commercial property wrapped around to the east and south of the subject property. 2 months ago, the Corsair Land Company, I think it's just outside of the HL district, if I'm remembering correctly, but a rezoning was approved from an R4 to a commercial. So they were facing a similar type of problem, but that's a different set of circumstances. So I guess what I'm trying to answer is there has never been a circumstance where they've needed to come to this body or to do something different, but now there is, and we're trying to arrive at a solution to allow these people to stay in business like they have been for 30 years.
So have they received any citations from the city for?
Apparently, the answer is yes, just recently. That's what's generated.
Is that what brought this about?
That's what's brought this about is somebody filed a complaint, and as you're aware, Oklahoma City is based on a complaint system, and so we've been working with Bob Tiener's office and trying to figure out what is a possible remedy here to bring them into compliance, and this is what we're proposing, and hopefully we can gain your support.
As far as citations, I know there are citations going back quite a few years and when you look online, you can't see all the details of what the citation's for, but there are various notices of violation, and you can see them making their way through a process and being closed out. So I know they have had a history of citations for
And
the
if so, I'm not aware of them, but
I think when I look at this lot is being used for a commercial use. This SPUD would allow that to continue. I know we recently had an application for a commercial on 22nd, I think.
22nd.
In Broadway. And, our thought there was, or some of us felt that the commercial was encroaching into the residential, into this neighborhood that has been designated a historic preservation neighborhood. And I'm reading responses from neighbors, and I feel like several of them have that same concern. I wonder if it would be helpful if we heard if there's any neighbors that would like to speak.
Is there anybody who'd like to
behalf.
speak against this proposal?
I'm Randy Ice. You have a copy of my letter. I'm president of the Neighbor Association, and I've lived in the neighborhood since 1983. We have had continuous problems with this property. I'm the one that's been turning it in. I'm president of the Neighbor Association, and I've turned it in more than a dozen times for violations of zoning, our SPUD. Before we had an HL district, we had a SPUD that was passed in 1983. We've had all kinds of difficulty here. They have continued to use it. They'll stop for a period of time. The inspectors will go out. There won't be a car parked there, and so they'll close the case, and then it'll open up again. They've added gravel. The fence has been replaced. Back in the 80s, when I first moved in, this was just a vacant lot. I don't know who owned it at the time, but it was not used in this manner. And this encroachment has continued. This area has been zoned residential since the 60s, all right? It's just not acceptable. It's too close to residential structures on both sides. There is no shortage of demand for residential property in this area, especially R4 zoning. This would easily be developed into residential property. We opposed the parking lot on 14th Street next to a historic house because they were going to put taxi cabs within 5 foot of the guy's bedroom window. And the guy lived in the house, and he came down here and just begged you all not to let it happen, and you didn't let it happen. There are certain incompatible uses, and a 24/7 taxi parking operation in a residential area is one of those. I think sending this forward as a recommendation sends the wrong message. It encourages people to break the zoning laws and then break them long enough and then show up and say, oh, I've been doing it all this time, and so I should be able to continue to do it. Well, that's not the way the law works, especially in a situation like this where the residential zoning has been in place for 50 years. It's a violation of that, and the neighborhood's opposed to it. You've got several letters there. There's a bunch more people here. If you want to hear from them all, I'd be glad to send them up. But in the interest of time and tornadoes, perhaps I'm sufficient.
I've just been reminded that we don't review the use of the property. We review the changes to the property exterior characteristics of structures. So that's really the extent of our, your discussion about uses is really for the Planning Commission.
Well, and we plan to be at that. But at the same time, this impacts the entire neighborhood because it's a very intense commercial use in between two residential structures.
But we don't review the use. We review the appearance or historic character of the district.
But it diminishes the historic character of our district. That's the whole point. And if somebody
is trying to be clear of what our
well, many of our historic districts have commercial property on the perimeter, and if they encroach into the neighborhood like this, it diminishes the entire historic district, and that's been the biggest concern here, is this encroachment.
Randy, I'm looking at the picture, and it appears that there is a fence. Part of it looks old, and part of it looks new. So.
Well, it's all inappropriate. It was put.
Right, but I mean that would be another violation. I don't know if it was recorded or whatever, but apparently they did not come for a CA for the fence.
Yeah, we're just another note here is that the visual character of the site is something we need to do. Consider the site, the fence, the gravel, that sort of thing, but not the use so much. So.
I had a couple of comments I wanted to make about that. What the power that we have is to comment upon and provide recommendations with respect to the effect of these proposed actions upon historic, architectural, and archaeological resources. I mean, for one thing, to me, it seems to me if you're using a property not the way it's zoned, if it's zoned residential and you're using it commercial, then that does have an effect on historic resources to me. I mean, it's some sort of effect. So to me, it does seem within our power. If for some reason you did, everybody else besides me didn't feel like it was within our purview, we have the power to make a recommendation, but we don't have to. And I personally don't want to recommend approval under these conditions, but it seems like we could not make any recommendation at all. And then I guess, I mean, if that's the way you chose. But then the third thing I would say is regardless of what we do, I do think we should comment on or recommend that this condition that's under the staff recommendation is included if this is ultimately approved.
What are our options besides recommending, not recommending?
Oh, you can recommend, and you certainly should make a recommendation if in fact you have one. The concern is that you, in your recommending, consider the impact of whatever is being proposed on the historic character of the district, and not so much on increased traffic, for example, or something like that. But from an historic perspective, is where your comments should stem, and then anything you have to say, because this is the Historic Preservation Commission, would flow from that idea. So Commissioner Eddington was correct in his assessment of how it is that you review it, but this is not exclusively about the use. It's about how the use impacts the character of the historic district. I agree. I think the effect is, it would be like if there was a building there that was being used as commercial, but then they just had disregard. They didn't apply for CAs. They continued to do that. To me, it's the same thing. You kind of have some kind of a grandfather agreement in a way, but I think at this point, it's, the effect is negative on them.
If we wanted to, can we recommend denial?
You can recommend approval with any additional findings or conditions that you want to attach, and you can also certainly recommend denial. And I would even say you can recommend denial and also include the concern about making sure that you could say, while we recommend denial, if it is approved, it should continue to include the overlay, the findings in the staff report. So your recommendation can be whatever the commission sees fit.
Okay. Oh, excuse me. Ma'am, would you like to speak?
Hi, my name is Pam Thompson, and I am one of the partners owning the property GEF Investments. And I'm at a little bit of a loss here because the manager that I've had for many years is no longer with me as of just a few weeks ago. And I am 100% unaware of any citations on us, which is nobody's fault but mine, I do realize. And so I'm curious, this citation was my first. I had no clue that we were even zoned wrong for where we're at, and I apologize. We want to do the right thing. But I know there's been an issue with the neighboring apartment complex to my west, has that commercial trash unit on the front of the property. That's not something that's GEF's, that's that apartment complex. So I'm wondering if these citations are citations that came about to us about our use, or if it came to that apartment complex about that. And so and we would want to do whatever we could to dress the thing, do whatever we could to dress it up. But there is no, it's not a gravel parking lot. It's an asphalt parking lot. It's been asphalt, and it's been there just like it is since we acquired the property. I do know at one time they replaced it's got a wood fence, but they replaced it with the same kind of wood fence. And if we did the wrong thing at that time, we put back what was there, and we were under the understanding that that was acceptable. So if that's wrong, then the manager that was there before me, that's what he was telling me was supposed to happen, and I went along with what he said. So I just wanted you to know those pieces of information.
And my information on the citations was from a very quick look at just online. You can look up a property and see what their kind of case history is, and it just had a list of citations going back a number of years. It may well have been related to the dumpster. It doesn't give information on exactly what the citation is. I didn't pursue it further because obviously the issue is that it's a commercial use in a residential district. So
I
can send you a link to that list so you can be aware of what that history is.
The dumpster is not on your property.
It is on our property.
It is on your property.
The apartment, if you go back,
It's on the,
see right there, that right there?
Oh, right
That is on our property.
In the right-of-way, yeah.
And that belongs to that apartment building to the west of, that apartment building to the west of us has put it there. And we go back and forth with this company that puts it there. That's because we don't want to be a bad neighbor, and and there's been, so we've remove that, and then it'll be gone, and then it shows back up again. So, and I don't use this front, I come from the other direction, so I don't always see it, so.
Okay, was there somebody else who wanted to speak? Thank you.
I'm Sherry Pemberton. I live at 110 Northwest 22nd Street. A couple of things concern me. You're saying that, you're suggesting that maybe you only control the view. What about the smell? I know that with light maintenance, if you tune up your own car, you've got oil, you've got gas, you've got toxins. And so what are they going to do with those? You know that people will be able to smell that from the apartments next door. That's certainly a factor to me. And this 30-year stuff, that's only an admission that they've been doing the wrong thing for 30 years. We're just here now. We're new at this. And there's a young, very enthusiastic group moving into Heritage Hills. And we're very excited about that, and we're all getting together regularly. We're growing in size and enthusiasm. So this is why we're here. I'm always baffled when a staff report comes out and says this property has been given citations many times in the past, but we recommend passing it on to planning. So I'm still a little baffled with that. That empty lot, I think, belongs to St. Luke's. St. Luke's has 50 feet past the fence of the little building that's on Robinson. St. Luke's owns 50 feet to the east. So that may be storage for the church in a box, temporary church in a box. They're building in Edmond. And so that may be part of St. Luke's stuff, but it's their property.
Okay.
I think that's it. Oh, on 22nd Street, thank you so much for not allowing the commercial development there on that corner. On the north side of 22nd Street, behind the loan companies, there are the loan companies, there's a driveway, there's another house, and the loan companies have graveled the backyard, the complete backyard of that house, and they allow their employees to park on it. You can't see it.
That'd be another case, another issue.
I know, but if you approve this,
Right.
what are you going to do with
The precedent?
22nd Street? And what are you going to do with another graveled over property? It's been hidden and you've been given a citation,
We
but...
take each case on its own merit, so
Okay.
appreciate you mentioning that. Any more comments from the commission or questions? Thank you.
May I add something?
Yeah.
First of all, this is a asphalted lot. It's not gravelled. The work that's done in the little shop has nothing to do with changing oil or anything like that. It is simply to install the cab signs on the top and the registers inside. So there are no operations going on that create petroleum smells or anything like that. So, I think the point I'd like to leave you with here is that this zoning proposal sets up that if this property, the use, ever changes, and hopefully in years to come, this property and others around it will become so valuable for residential development of some kind that this will be developed eventually. But until that time, we would like to simply allow that this use that's been going on for 30 years, and it's simply a storage and minimal body work to fix the cars, just continue until such time as things would change, and it would, the R4 restrictions, the HP restrictions would all remain in place. So there's no request to revise any of those things.
So if I understand it right, the SPUD just adds an additional permitted use. Everything else remains the same?
That's right, for the limited time.
For limited time.
That these folks occupy the property for this use.
Okay, but no other changes?
No other changes.
Adds those uses, okay. More comments? Anybody?
Quick comment. In the application, it clearly says one of the allowed uses is automobile and equipment, cleaning and repairs, light equipment. This includes regular cleaning and minor repair work, but no body work. So they're requesting not to do any body work, but they just told you they're going to be doing body work.
Well, would you like to address that? That's a good point.
Well, they're not, the definitions on use units are rather specific in general, but these are not body work repairs. It's simply inserting a sign, bolting it onto the top of the cab, and the register equipment inside. That's the extent of it. So repairs aren't being made here. If a cab is damaged in a wreck, it goes to an appropriate place to be repaired, not here. Okay, this just prepares a vehicle to become a cab. That's all.
Yeah, so on that point, body work is further defined elsewhere, and it is more about kind of structural repairs to the framing.
And so if
in that context, body of the car. So
if I use body work, it was I misspoke.
So they can't take the engine block out and work on it and that sort of thing under that definition, but it is a confusing category.
Do you want to speak again, ma'am?
As the owner, I was just going to tell you, all it is wiring for the lights and the wiring inside for the radio, the meter, and so that the equipment inside the vehicle works, and applying decals to the outside of the car. There's no mechanical or body work per se done at that location. It's just what we call get ready. Thank you.
Okay.
I think I just keep getting stuck on the fact that it is zoned R4, general residential, it is mid-block, and it's being used for commercial purposes. For that reason, I would move denial.
So it's recommendations. So
Recommend, unless there's any other, I just wanted to share that. I don't know if anyone else has any other comments.
I agree.
I'd second it, so I don't know what you need.
Well,
Okay.
Those
Sure.
are your I just went blank. Your reasons.
Right. Some
Yeah.
specific can
So-
outlay some reasoning.
I recommend denial to the Planning Commission for the base rezoning request regarding SPUD 813, with the specific finding that allowing this additional use on this R4 general residential zoned parcel could have a negative impact on the historic character of the district. I don't know if anyone, do you have something else to add there, Greg?
Well, my only question is, do I need to incorporate into her motion that if it's approved that we want this condition, or is that a separate matter?
No. Yeah, I think you should.
Okay, you want to?
So let's, I don't really love that. I mean, we're recommending denial. I mean, why would we say, but if you want to approve this, we recommend this condition? I don't know that I'm comfortable with that.
I think it's fine either way. I think from working with Planning Commission staff on this, that regardless of what our recommendation is, they are going to continue to recommend that it stay within the HL overlay, and I think the applicant fully intends to do that. There hasn't been, the previous SPUD that we reviewed in Heritage Hills East was proposing to completely remove the HL overlay, and they haven't proposed that at all. So I think it's fine to include that. I think it would not be an issue even if we don't include it.
So would it be included as a condition when we're recommending denial?
It could be a finding, with the finding that should this be approved, it should stay.
It could be a
within the
comment,
overlay.
couldn't it? Because it says we comment and provide recommendations, so your recommendation is denial, but add the comment that, I mean, if you want to.
Yeah. So the comment would be that.
It's a lawyer.
Can I just say,
Or a general comment that the property is appropriate in an HL overlay and should remain as such.
okay, that's it.
I want to second it, but I also want to add a specific finding that the proposed SPUD does not allow for future development of the site in the more compatible residential character of the district.
So does the movement accept this additional information?
Does not allow for future redevelopment. I don't know that I agree with that.
You don't love it?
Well, the SPUD is keeping the R4 zoning, so that would allow for future redevelopment of something with more residential character. With the SPUD, they're just adding an additional use.
Right.
Okay. So I take mine back then.
I don't agree with that.
I take mine back. I'll just second what Neela said.
Okay, then moved by Neela Clemens, seconded by Jennifer Bourne. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's recommended for denial.
Ellen, I'm going to have to leave. Thank you.
I have a feeling the next one will be too.
SPUD zeros, it's actually SPUD 822. We have zeros on the agenda, but there's not any zeros. At 3012 North Walker, Jefferson Park, Ward 2, consideration and possible action regarding a request from Adam Shelton for recommendation from the Historic Preservation Commission to rezone from Historic Landmark Overlay District to a simplified planned unit development with development occurring under HL zoning regulations with specific uses called out, in short, to rezone to allow for a drinking establishment, service of alcohol. We've got several comments from the neighbors on this application as well. I will note that all of the various restrictions and regulations as far as serving alcohol and proximity to other facilities and those kinds of things, those specifics will be very closely dealt with by ABLE Commission. And regardless of whether or not this SPUD is approved, if they don't meet all of those additional criteria, they won't be able to get the appropriate licenses to serve alcohol. So there have been questions raised about the proximity to Edgemere Elementary and the proximity to a church, and those are valid concerns, but just so that you know, those will be addressed by a separate body.
Right, similar to the previous. So we're here to look at the same things, the effect on the neighborhood and HP characteristics. So,
I have a question of the applicant, and
Are
if
you
you
the
would mind
applicant?
saying.
Hi there, I'm Kristen Mercer, and I am the project and applicant representative for the Twisted Root Gallery and the SPUD application. And with me today is also the property owner, which is Mumtaz Khan, and the operator and business owner of Twisted Root, who is Adam Shelton, who is actually on the application.
Okay, what's your name again? I didn't catch it.
Kristen Mercer.
Did you sign in?
I am signing right now.
Okay.
My question is, with this proposed SPUD, currently it operates as a gallery, is that correct?
That is correct.
So it will still operate as a gallery, but you're just wanting to sell alcohol?
Correct, yes. Its primary use is an art gallery and event space, and our new concept is to just expand upon that and offer not only what we have been for the past 4 years in the community, but I'll be able to offer that leisure option for a mixed beverage, glass of wine, things like that, throughout our events and within the operating hours that we're expanding upon.
So there is a bar just across the street, north side of the street, Red Rooster. They serve alcohol. I wonder how the neighbors feel about that. I mean, you know, I'm reading some of the letters, and they're concerned. I don't know that I see a difference.
Because, sorry, I'm going to interrupt, because people are looking at me like, what's going on? They just said that the tornado sirens may or may not go off at some point, but that they are watching very closely and will let us know if it's actually close to us and we need to go to the basement. So, just so everyone's aware.
Could I ask a question? I'm kind of confused. The photographs show the corner grocery store. You're
Yes.
talking about that.
The start right now, they have the application bringing the property from the convenience store line for the 300-foot radius to the edge of the school. And what you're seeing back, it'll rotate again, the actual property that we are rezoning for is on the south side of the property. And you can see that when it comes back up. And so what we propose is, speaking with the planning department this morning, is pulling from that our north wall in the leasable space to fit in that 300-foot radius. So what you're looking at on the corner is actually not where the location will be.
Right.
So the SPUD will outline that and say
Yes,
it's going to
yes.
start at this point, not from the corner of 30th.
Correct, yes. And that will be addressed at, with the planning department next week as well.
Okay. Is there anybody else who would like to speak to this?
I would definitely like to come back up in a second. Thank you.
Yes, my name is Doug Easton. I am president of the Edgemere Park Homeowners Association. And Jan Hook had sent in her complaints. Granted, they go quite a bit to the uses of the property, and in their application, they say there is adequate parking. There is not. There are approximately, if you give 4 or 5 spaces to the convenience store, there are no more than 10 spots. So, and their drawing has 19 tables. So you've got a problem there. You're going to have more employees with a drinking establishment.
How much parking is required?
Pardon?
Well, he wouldn't know. I get one thing.
Does staff know that? Or that's not really even part of our...
I do not know how much is currently required. I'm sorry. I know that the SPUD was written to say that the existing parking would be adequate and not require additional parking.
That is what they say, but it is not adequate. When you have 19 tables and 10 parking spots, that's not adequate. And then you have staff that has to get there. There's a vacant lot just south of this establishment, which is going to be used as a parking lot. Walker has no parking other than off-street parking, so people are going to be parking on 29th, or they're going to be parking on 30th. It is going to cause a lot of confusion.
So in relation to the parking issue, that affects the neighborhood?
Because you're going to have cars parked all over the street.
And that's the effect on the neighborhood.
I think that was a concern that some neighbors had on with the RISE development and another proposed development on 23rd, and I don't know what's really come of that. I mean, the developments were approved, but, you know, I think we need to keep in mind we are in an urban area. We do have on-street parking or off-street parking, on-street parking. I just, I hear what you're saying.
You don't on Walker.
But you don't on Walker, but you do on 30th.
And you've got a daycare.
You also
right there.
have a school over there during, you know, in the evenings and the weekends. That parking could be utilized. They could maybe work out something with the school. I don't know if that's possible. But I just don't, my thought is, I don't see parking as a reason to deny the application.
Well, the zoning would require a certain amount of parking. If they don't meet it, they won't get approval. And we mentioned the RISE. They built a entire parking lot to the north for all that their development. So they did satisfy off-street parking requirement. But they would have to do that.
Well, the SPUD also says that they are going to designate the entire building. And that, in one of the uses that's going to be permitted is alcohol, eating establishment, alcohol permitted.
I think that she just spoke of that you're going to go back 300 feet or something. It won't be the entire building. That will be spelled out in the SPUD. Is that right? And you can come up here and speak on this, just to clarify that.
Have you already amended?
Okay, you guys can't talk to each other.
Sorry. And speaking with the Planning Commission this morning, what Lance Gross has been working diligently on this application with us and for us. He, in resubmitting for the meeting next week, he is going to make sure that that line is, he actually wrote up that part of the application himself, and so in that, he is going to make sure that that line is drawn back within the leasing space, or leasing wall of the space. And so on our end, we are not actually having to amend or apply for that, to my understanding. And a couple of things that I want to touch on, and these are really great concerns, and I appreciate the opportunity to be able to address them. With that parking being, an issue, we are in a park and walk district, the Paseo district in Jefferson Park. It is a community-based, area, and that's one thing that I think that the patrons and residents love about it is the energy that kind of brings to the community. Fortunately, we have been able to come up with a solution that, when needed, we have the option to, with our neighbors on the west side of Walker, I think, I have this here, right? I've got a diagram, and I do apologize, I don't have 10 copies, I just was able to get this right before we came. The 500 Northwest 30th, there is a nonprofit organization there, and the owners are building a parking lot that they're already permitted for. I guess they have their contracts. I don't have all that information. But they have signed a document stating that we are able to use those spaces. There are 30 spaces that are going to be put in that spot that we have access to during our working hours. And just to clarify, there are 16 spaces in front of the Twisted Root wrapping around around the convenience store off of Walker as well.
Well, but the convenience store needs to use some of those parking spots.
Yeah, very, very true. And so we luckily have that option, along with the parking and walking that we do encourage in the district for sure. And we have, we've been doing this for 4 years successfully, hosting people within the community, and we've had great success. We have over 150 supporters, the signed letters of support that includes business owners and property owners and residents within even the 300-foot radius. Not that we don't know what everyone feels like in the community, but they've been very successful for 4 years. And what we're wanting to do is not become a bar location or just a drinking establishment. We want to add this into the concept that already exists, which art and music and the events within the community. Fundraising has been a huge part of what Twisted Root's done over the past 4 years. Because of that, we haven't had any issues thus far, and we want to just be able to expand upon that idea. Within the Paseo district, we have several drinking establishments. 4 out of 5 of them have food as an option as well. We don't want to close our doors to the community and families. We want to be able to invite everyone in. When we have art openings and events alike, we want everyone in the community to be able to come. And so as far as, we might not have food currently, but I think the base of the restaurant zoning, I think it's a C3. I think we're in C3, but being able to keep it on that level and still invite everyone in creates the atmosphere and the environment that we're shooting for. And to address some of the other issues that I think that you sent over, increasing the drinking and driving and the recklessness in the neighborhood and things like that, I don't think that we're altering what is already there. We're just, we're creating more options and kind of taking a subtle approach to what adding mixed beverages into an art gallery might be. I think the planning department, Janice Powers, who is our district's zoning commissioner, she came by and she said this is a hybrid, application or proposal, and we really like that idea because it is a combination experience of not just a bar and not just art and not just live music or events, but a collection of all those things in one spot. And that's really what our mission is, and we're hoping the community will continue to support as much as they have so far. And I think there was a couple other issues that you brought up or concerns, and I want to give you an opportunity to speak, and maybe I can address them if you have comments.
Well, I'm a little confused. At one point, you say you're going to serve beer and wine, and now you're saying mixed drinks.
Okay, you need to direct them towards...
Oh,
I'm a little confused with the application, because it says they're going to serve beer and wine, and then elsewhere it says they're going to serve mixed drinks.
The application will cover mixed beverages and beer and wine. Initially, we were open to either option, truly, and they really encouraged us to go ahead and go for that full mixed beverage so we can have that option. And I think that the application should cover both of those things.
Well, again, we're trying to stay with effects on the historic preservation character and, of course, external modifications to buildings, which are not, but...
I do think off-street parking would be good, but they may or may not have that. I think it's going to increase the number of cars parked, which does create a bottleneck, which is going to detract from our historical neighborhood.
Could that become part of the application to add use of that off-street parking?
I think that if the commission was leaning towards recommending approval, you could include that as a comment or a condition that that parking may have an effect on the neighborhood and should be appropriately addressed or something in those lines.
And the other thing you recommended, staff recommended, was that the SPUD add that it retain the requirements, provisions of the HL overlay, and will not allow work that distracts from the architectural character of the district. Is that acceptable?
I believe so, yes. I'm sorry, I didn't actually hear everything you said. I was trying to follow you. But
it's under staff recommendation on page 3 of 3. Add that finding to our, if we recommend approval.
That's just a finding that it already does include all of those. That's a finding, not a condition.
Oh, it was a finding. Okay, I thought it was a change to the SPUD. Okay, so it already has that.
No, I believe
that's why we're here.
They included that in their application.
That's why we're here. There's no change. Okay.
Ms. Mercer, right?
Yes.
Looking at the clientele you have now, the number of patrons, do you expect that to increase a little, a lot, stay the same whenever if you're granted this SPUD?
I believe that it will kind of vary throughout the day. Our hours of operation will expand a little bit, and our demographic will, I believe, as well. It's something that being open during the day into the evening every day versus just having gallery hours and having something to offer with comfortable seating, watching a Thunder game, things like that in the evening. People within the community, Jefferson Park, Edgemere, can, kind of enjoy a different atmosphere within the gallery. So I believe that it will, it'll bring in more people at different times of the day, and I think the demographic will widen as well. We're looking at 21 and up to drink, but we're bringing in families and then hoping that, that demographic goes into anyone's welcome at that point. And so I think it will vary a little bit, especially with the hours and what we're trying to, really aim for.
Sure. I think the location of this business, it's smack dab in the middle of 3 neighborhoods. Not everyone is going to drive to the bar. You're going to get a lot of foot traffic from the people that live in Edgemere Park, Jefferson Park, Paseo, even across 23rd.
Central Park. There's 4
Central Park. There's a trend now toward people riding bicycles. You might put a bicycle rack out there. But I hear your fear of lots of cars coming in, and I just don't know if that's going to be realized based on current trends.
Well, there's quite a bit of traffic in the Paseo area, so people are not walking to the Paseo.
But I would also be cautious of going too far and we'll end up with cases like our previous case that we just saw, where we've got vacant lots that are paved over and turned into parking lots, and that's not good for the historic districts either. We expect a certain level of density and urbanism in our historic districts. So I would want to be cautious in whatever comments we make in going forward in regard to parking.
And if the city will deal with the parking, right? I mean, we wouldn't even have to put that as a condition or anything. They're going to take care of that. They're going to make sure there's enough parking based on whatever the zoning is.
Well, there's also the problem of the daycare being within 30 feet.
It actually,
and that's a whole other set of zoning issues that will have to be, or able issues that will have to be addressed.
And answering somebody's question about the bar across the street, that bar was sort of grandfathered in. It has been there probably 60 years.
At least.
So,
back when drinking next to elementary schools was okay? Or,
Right.
Back when the kids could go from Edgemere Elementary right over to the Red Rooster.
Well, men went, men. Okay,
just to know that we actually have had wonderful support within the daycare. They lease a space from our property owner as well, and we have worked side by side with them for their lease time, which I think is, how long have they been there? 2 years. And they actually, like in that list of over 150 support statements that we have, they're actually on that. And they've worked very well with us. And our operating hours are not at the same time with the daycare. And obviously that goes with the school as well. So we really want to work with the neighborhood and the residents and our direct neighbors for sure, and make it work for everyone.
I know that you're saying that now because you're hoping to get approved, and I
Sure.
understand that. My hope, if this is ultimately approved, that you do that you do
Absolutely.
work more with the neighbors and their businesses.
Did you receive anything from Jefferson Park or Central?
We actually invited everyone to an open house that was within the district, 300-foot radius, and we were able to speak with one of the chairs of Jefferson Park, and we got positive feedback, but those change, obviously, but we were able to open our doors and try to answer any questions and concerns.
I think because we're tasked with the historic character, making sure the building stays, reflects the historic character of the district. It does. They're not proposing any changes to the exterior. If they ever do, they will have to come back to us with a HL overlay. I would recommend approval to the Planning Commission.
Second.
Okay. And I would like to add the specific finding that's listed in Section E of the staff recommendation.
All right, moved by Neil Clement, second by Jeff Parks. All in favor? Aye. Opposed? Okay, it's recommended for approval.
Thank you very much.
All right, next item. Thank you.
Okay, under communications and reports, we have one presentation, 117 Northwest 14th Street, Heritage Hills East, Ward 6. Presentation for informational purposes only by Wade Gray of proposed new construction. This was an applicant that staff heard from with a fairly unusual project, and we thought it warranted kind of a preliminary meeting with the commission to get a little bit of feedback on a couple of issues with the property. In the staff report, we just very briefly mentioned that it's a commercial-looking structure on a block that once was primarily single-family residential, but now has a mix of different structures and uses. They've also included an option that would add garage doors on the front of the structure, kind of mimicking some of the buildings on Automobile Alley, historic fire stations, that kind of a look. And so I wanted to give them a chance to get a little feedback on the commission before moving forward with that design.
Could you clarify the zoning?
So it is zone C4. It is zone commercial, and they intend to have it as a kind of a live-work space.
Yeah, mixed-use space, yeah. Live, work there. First of all, I apologize for my dress. I didn't know if I was supposed to be here for the initial roll call. This is my first time. If I'd known it was going to be like, I could have gone home and showered and everything. But I ran in from Shawnee. But I guess, Katie, am I understanding it that they all received the same packet I did?
Yes, they have the same documents that you have.
Okay. So am I supposed to just talk about what I'm wanting to do, or have you all already reviewed it and you're going to tell me stuff? Or?
I mean, I think we have it.
Okay.
Why don't you go ahead and summarize what you'd like to do?
Well, we're wanting to build a structure there. It'll be in line on the build line with all the other structures. We're actually just up the street from the yellow cab that was talked about earlier. And we're wanting to have, I own a company as well as we do a lot of nonprofit work, and we're wanting to basically live in the facility and also have a portion of it that we use for our general office purposes.
Office, okay.
What I'm wanting to do, my preference is I know that historically for homes in the area, the parking is in the rear. In fact, you guys have covered that extensively on the first one I walked in. And we are wanting to have the garage doors on the front side of the building. And the structure would actually look pretty much like an old fire department, for lack of a better way of describing it. And so I guess that's what I'm really here to talk about is it's commercially zoned. I think you have all the pictures of all the neighboring, yellow cab's actually on there, as a matter of fact. all of our neighboring structures, including the ones directly to the south, the garage loft apartments. Everything around it is of a commercial nature, except with the exception of the house. There's a house that's not being lived in that actually sits immediately adjacent on the east side of our property and sits on the west side of the Yellow Cab property. And I think it's been rezoned commercial as well. I think it's C4 as well. They were talking about a coffee shop or something. I don't know what they're going to do there. So on the packet that Katie sent me, on the back page, do you all see, and it's not in color, do you see the,
Yep.
The structure on the far right?
Right.
That would be real similar to what the garage doors would look like. And then we've had our architect draw the side views, I don't know if you've all seen those.
Yeah.
Side views.
Can I clarify, are you saying that you want the garage doors on the front so you can drive into the doors?
That's correct, yeah. We just pull in off of 14th into underneath it'd be a two-story structure, and we would have, parking on the bottom, in the front, so.
Okay.
Is this right next door to the existing residence?
Yes, right on the west side of that residence.
And it's two lots?
It's two lots. Mm-hmm.
So it's 70 feet, about 70 feet wide?
No, it's 50 feet wide.
50, okay.
Yeah, 50 feet wide.
Well, you included your floor plans, but it's not showing that a residence is upstairs. It just shows a single bathroom on the first floor.
Yeah, those plans that he
asking.
sketched in there, those really aren't.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm not even sure what he was doing there.
So would you say that it's going to be primarily a residence? I mean, if the upper floor is a residence and half of the downstairs is the garage, then that just leaves half of the downstairs for the office?
When you say primarily, you mean in relation to how many square feet are used for one?
Well, I mean, just
the other?
percentage-wise, I'm saying if you live upstairs,
Right.
that's
Yeah,
half.
Primarily residence.
And
If
then-
you're talking about percentage that would be utilized for work, yes, it's not going to be nearly as much as what we would be utilizing for living space. So it'd be primarily residence. Mm-hmm.
It's zone C4, Katie, is that correct?
Yes, that's right.
And what is that exactly?
So C4 is the highest intensity commercial use. So you can have residential within that zoning.
So he's not asking to be rezoned, it is commercial already. I like the idea of the live workspace. I think the photographs you've included kind of have that urban feel, which contributes to the walkable urbanism. You're going to have a commercial space there and a residential, so there's going to be life in the building at all hours of the day. And I think that also contributes to the character of our districts.
Would you clarify that? Because I don't think he's meaning to have people in. I mean, will the business will you have other people come into the building for business purposes?
I don't mean that lots of people or anyone will be coming in. I mean, he's going to be there. He's going to work there. He's going to live there. So having kind of the eyes on the street feel to that, I think, is positive in my mind.
What's across the street?
Which
South.
Directly south?
Yep.
If you look, it's an open field, and directly, if you're sitting if we build this structure, the house, you'd be looking at the back of the garage loft apartment.
Okay. And there's the St. Luke's Church over there, okay.
Well, I would just comment that there's really not enough details to really, for me, to say that, to know really exactly what the building is going to look like, other than the photographs that you've supplied. And most of the photographs, or some of them, they really don't, to me, they do not look like the architecture of Oklahoma City. They have more of an East Coast kind of appearance. to them. I mean, I don't know that we don't have an existing firehouse that like is, turn of the century with two,
Yeah, actually, some of these photographs are
They are?
in
Okay.
Oklahoma City, yes.
Yeah, there's a firehouse in Bricktown that looks just like this back page. I've seen it because one of the firms I work for, we were going to redo
an
it.
original one?
But one of the problems is this area, I'm sure, has a building line about 30, 35 feet in.
It's 30 feet.
Yeah, the rest of those are probably CBD where there's no setback. You're right on the
I'm sorry,
property
say
line.
that one more time?
The other properties, the firehouse, whatever, they probably don't have the setback. You're going to be, with the right-of-way plus the setback, you're going to be quite a ways back from the street.
So, right.
Right.
Would you expect your building to sit in line with the neighboring structure?
It would be.
So you're going to have two overhead doors, and you're going to have concrete going from the street back to
Right.
those doors?
Yeah.
That-
You have to have
that'd
30
be
feet of
correct.
concrete in the yard.
That's
I'm
gonna
sorry,
be-
say it again?
I'm with Alan.
You're going to have a two-car wide driveway going from the street way back to that setback line. That's going to be a lot of concrete,
30 feet, yeah.
plus the right-of-way. So you're going to be back quite a ways. That's my point. It's not,
Okay.
this is a residential area, you're putting a commercial building in it, residential pattern,
It's all, the whole block is commercial.
zone commercial, but if you look at the aerial, has sidewalks, you know.
Well, every building that I took a picture of every building around it, other than the abandoned house,
Yeah.
is a commercial building.
Yeah, but I'm just looking at the aerial.
Is there an alley?
There's not.
So I'm not as in favor of putting a commercial appearance building in the, I'm not saying for the zoning, I'm just saying the appearance with a big driveway and park, concrete.
But I mean, right now, people have they could go either way, correct, for zoning. I mean, you could have houses or commercial.
That's what we're just looking at, to see if there's...
Rita is checking that,
Checking that.
because Angela was, I was thinking that we talked about that with zoning, but Angela's thinking that that's not the case, so we're going to double check on that, on what the zoning will allow.
If you had an opportunity to have it, on the sidewalk, that would make a little more sense. But having
To move the building all the way up to the sidewalk?
yeah.
That would be an urban
Right,
pattern.
that would be an urban design there, but to have a commercial building, it's kind of like putting it in the middle of the field, and then you don't have a yard.
Well, most commercial buildings do have parking in the front, and I would think with the garages, I would rather have it set back to where you weren't opening a garage door and having a vehicle pull straight out over the
But don't you
top of
think
the
then
sidewalk.
you'd have a tendency, like the rest of us, to park in your driveway, so you would end up with like cars sitting in front of the building? Or if somebody came to visit you, they would pull in and be in front?
If someone came to visit, yeah, they'd probably pull up in
So,
there.
yeah, so it would be like parking in the front yard. I think.
Or like every house you drive through Heritage Hills, people are pulled up in the driveway. Their
In a
cars are-
driveway.
Well, this would be a driveway going up to the two garage doors.
So the photograph that you showed, the building's set back about 10 or 12 feet from the curb. You'd be back about, 50 feet. That's
So
it's not the same thing.
Yeah, so you don't like it setting back further?
Right.
You don't like that?
If you wanted to if you want to park in the back
Right.
and have grass in the front,
Well,
Yep.
well, all the other commercial buildings on that block, they're all on that same build line. So if we tried to pull it forward, I would think
There's
that
only
would...
one, right? I'm sorry, 107, or is 111 also a building? It's hard to tell from the aerial.
I'm sorry, what's your question?
I'm trying to see exactly how many commercial buildings there are on that block.
There's a lot of empty space. 107.
This is the first time I've heard of this. This is in our
You could take the other microphone if you like.
That's the first thing I'd recommend before you pursue any further. Maybe come talk to the Neighborhood Design Review Committee before you apply with the city. Get a little more input from the neighborhood association.
Need to address us.
Okay. I'm just trying to encourage him to talk to the neighborhood. I think it's a great idea to have a mixed use here. I will just tell you that house, right now it's not lived in. I wouldn't call it abandoned. Okay. It has been lived in recently. In the previous case with Yellow Cab, this commission and planning and council refused to allow a parking lot right next door to this house, this very house, because it was within 5 foot of their bedroom window. Okay, and that was a very precedent-setting activity. This is in the HL, and it's also under a UCD, which restricts the width of the driveway. You'd have to have a variance to have this much concrete in front of the house. And so all that would have to be addressed. There are 3 commercial structures on this building, one owned by St. Luke's, and the parking lot just to the west is St. Luke's property. And then there are 2 commercial structures down the road, the Yellow Cab and then another commercial building that they had tried to put a restaurant in, but St. Luke's blocked the alcohol application because that whole block is within that district, that time frame there. So, I mean, I think a setback would be appropriate, okay, but I don't know that you, I mean, I just think you have to think this thing through a little, in some little more depth.
So your request also is that the applicant is not applying, he's just asking for opinions, work with the neighborhood association?
Yes, just work with the neighborhood. I think we're all on the same page. There are obviously historic structures immediately to the north.
Okay. Any other comments?
And on that note, when I started this whole process, I did reach out to I was trying to find the appropriate neighborhood association, and I was told that I contacted the Heritage Hills, and they said, well, this is Heritage Hills East, and so we don't have anything to do with that. And so then I came down and talked to Katie, and then she recommended me come here and talk to you guys. So I did reach out to an association and was sent to Katie, and then here I am. So
Make that connection now. This is Randy
Sure.
Ice.
No, that'd be great.
President of Heritage Hills East neighborhood. So I think
okay.
this is a great connection to me.
Okay, no, that is.
You're welcome.
That is. Fortunate. Well, hey, and let me ask this. It's good that you're here. So the commercial building that's all the way on the east end of the block that sits right on Broadway there.
Yeah.
I know you're listening. So the whole south side of that building, from the building structure that's on the build line, 30-foot build line, to 14th Street, that's all concrete, the entire thing.
Right.
And that wraps around and goes all the way north to south on the east side of that building. So what I would be proposing, and they've got a big garage door that opens up straight to 14th Street. So would there be much difference in what I'm proposing? There it is right there. You can see the 2 big garage doors on the side, and it's all concrete all the way out to 14th.
Completely different.
I think that's an incompatible building in the HL overlay district, and that building predated the HL overlay for the area. But
And it also fronts Broadway,
exactly.
which is a different orientation.
Different character of street, right.
Well, the front of that building actually fronts 14th Street. The side that's facing Broadway is in front of the
It's just
building.
not, I don't think it's, just in context of the whole street, I don't think that is, it would make a difficult fit. If you were proposing, if you had all of the land and you were proposing something that, was going to be a whole thing, that might be something completely different. But
Now,
I think
what do you mean
we don't
by-
have that all. I mean, if you owned everything between the Yellow Cab and the
Oh, I
last
see.
building,
I see.
and we had, and it was a bigger piece, but we're having to look at, this one little 50-foot area, and we don't really know what's going to happen. So
What's on the west end?
another.
The west of my property?
On Robinson, what's that building?
St. Luke's.
St. Luke's.
That's St. Luke's, okay.
St. Luke's also, that's St. Luke's, and then right adjacent to it on the east is a 50-foot. I own half of what you're looking at there, and St. Luke's owns, I own the east half, and St. Luke's owns the west half.
The building there is for an after-school program.
Okay. Okay. All right. Any other more comments? You have enough?
Well, no, I would like to get a better feel for, what was your name? What was his name?
Randy.
You guys can
Andy
talk
Ice.
afterwards.
I'll get you the neighborhood's
Okay.
contact information.
I'd like
We
to get a
did
better,
just-
so, is it, you've seen the drawings and everything of the building, is it primarily, do you see the primary issue just being the parking up front?
Just to sum up kind of my issues, I think, my comments, I think mixed use is not inappropriate for the site. That makes sense. I think that it doesn't necessarily have to look like a wood frame house. I think that there are other things that go on in this block, in this part of Heritage Hills East. You know, you look at the fourplex apartments and those kinds of buildings, they start to take the shape of the things that you're looking at.
Right.
I'm not a huge fan of the garage doors on the front of the building. We go to a lot of work here at this commission to keep cars out of the front of buildings and pay attention to where garage doors go and not on the fronts of buildings. I think that there are options for you to think about and look at. Yeah, that's what I got to say.
Okay. So probably the best thing for me to do is to get with this gentleman that I can't speak to right now and start the process there and then just arrange to come back and go that route. Does that sound?
And work with staff.
Okay.
Because I thought we had talked with current zoning and stuff, what Rita was able to just pull up. It looks like residential would not be permitted, so we need to check back, I would say, pretty quickly with zoning to figure out what, if anything, you need to do to be able to do the use that you want at that site, and probably at the same time as you're working on the use issue, start coordinating with the neighborhood, and we can take it from there.
Yeah, that would be unfortunate. I was told when I purchased the lot that because there used to be a house that sat on there, and now it's been rezoned commercial, that I could do either or, and or both. I was told it had the most flexible zoning of anything, so I guess you kind of learn. But
Did some real estate agent tell you that? No.
Well, and I just looked at a chart on an iPhone, so I might be wrong, but we'll check. We'll get it cleared up.
And worse, it probably wouldn't be that difficult if we had to rezone it back residential to just build a living structure there. Is that a difficult process to go from the the C4 to the residential?
So it's certainly a process that you have to go through, and it goes through multiple steps before this commission and planning commission and.
But right now, we don't know for sure that I
Right.
can't. Okay.
Right.
Okay.
So.
All right. Well, I'll get with.
I hope we help, yeah. Now you can talk to him. Thank you very much. Okay, next item, administrative approvals, 25 of them.
So, yep, long list of administrative approvals. If you have questions, let us know. We can follow up with what all of those are. We had one item withdrawn, and then under nothing from City Council, under Board of Adjustment, our appeal from 205 Northwest 32nd Street was denied by the Board of, his appeal was denied, so our decision was upheld, the Commission's decision was upheld. This was 205 Northwest 32nd, and it was a number of different items. It was a fence that exceeded the height, an outdoor kitchen roof that was visible, those things. We have learned that this denial from Board of Adjustment has been appealed to District Court, so we'll keep you posted on the status of that.
He really wants that outdoor kitchen.
And then we have another case that is being appealed to Board of Adjustment, and that's the 1001 Northwest 17th Street recent denial of the pergola.
Okay. Anything for municipal counselor's office? No. Okay. The next, as Katie mentioned before, the next regular scheduled meeting of the commission is May 29th. It's a Friday at 2 p.m. New applications were received April 30th. New information must be submitted Tuesday, May 12th by 4 p.m. Next regular scheduled workshop of the commission is Wednesday, May 13th from 11:30 to 1:30, 420 West Main, Suite 900. Any items from commissioners?
I just had one last thing. I'm so sorry. The Board of Adjustment, the number 2 item, was that the denial we just did last meeting?
Yes.
For the pergola?
Yep.
I thought that it was denied without prejudice.
Well, they can appeal our denial regardless of the status of it to Board of Adjustment. That's their next step.
Oh, that's what they're doing.
Yep.
I apologize.
So the with without prejudice has to do with whether or not they can come back to us.
Right.
But once it's denied, they can appeal it to Board of Adjustment.
I see.
Yeah.
Thank you. Any citizens left? Nope. So we're adjourned. Thank you.